Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today Sam and I are joined by Sam Cooper. Before we dive into it, as always, you can get in touch with us on @CookieJarGolf on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. And for those of you who remember, Sam Cooper is a previous guest of the podcast. He joined with Jasper in the Evaluating podcast. So if you haven't listened to that one, check it out. This is a little bit different from Evaluating. This is Sam's adventure around the UK in his van. So let's get straight into this. So for those of you not in the know, Sam Cooper is Greens Committee at Hoylake, all-round ball striker, progressive traditionalist, stinger aficionado, and has shut up shop to travel around the UK playing pretty much every links course he can get his hands on. And the current number stands at 192 and it's growing. He started back in September and now he's 2 months into his quest to travel around the UK with his lovely wife, Harriet, and their 2 dogs. So we thought a couple of months into his quest, we would jump on and have a chat with you. So Sam Cooper, Sam, how you doing?
Hello, Mills. Thanks for having me back. Hello, Sam.
Some intro, that, Sam.
Wow.
That was some intro for you. Possibly the greatest, yeah.
I've never heard such nice words.
What was your favourite part of it?
All of it. All 3.5 minutes of it.
The one that still sticks with me is when you self-described yourself around Hoylake as being a progressive traditionalist, and I think you're gonna do well to wriggle away from that name now for some time.
I think that description has achieved cult status.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's almost in that sort
and
of
it
broader
needs to be said in a
Cleve
Brummie accent for it to really resonate.
Breeder of mighty champions. Cooper, the last time we spoke to you, you were about to set off on your trip. So we might as well pick up there. How long has it been? When did you start this insane movement?
Beginning of September. Insane is right, but we were lucky. We've had some pretty good weather so far. It's chucked it down and it's blown a gale, but it's also been pretty sunny, which is about as much as you could hope for going into autumn in Scotland. So far we're still surviving and we're still cracking on.
Just remind us, Sam, where are you at the moment? So just give us your point in the country at the moment.
So I'm now just past Inverness. So we started...
Okay, so you've been going anti-clockwise, haven't you?
Clockwise. So we started...
Clockwise.
We started in Kintyre on the west coast, just off the west coast. And then we've been going up and over, really. So working our way through some of the islands over there, Mull, Iona, Skye, and a few others, and up the mainland, off the west coast of the mainland, up to Durness in the northwest corner, and then across the top and started to make our way down the east coast. And here we are, just as I say, past Inverness.
So for our listeners that didn't pick this up on the last podcast, what you're doing is you've sold all your, well, you haven't sold it, but you've given up your earthly possessions to live in a van. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah. So during lockdown, we'd built a house. We'd moved and bought and sold and moved around. And Harriet, my very tolerant wife, and I had we'd basically been going from one move to another, sort of trying to get up the old property ladder kind of thing. And then we were just sat there during lockdown, thinking it's a bit stressful, all of this, isn't it? And well, who knows what's happening for the foreseeable. So we've as we enter lockdown 2.0, or they do in England, and all the rest of it. So we thought, well, why don't we just spend a bit of time, take a bit of stock, and going to live in a van seemed like a relatively logical thing to do to make the most of 6 months out, and that's how it all started, really.
And the van you just bought off the shelf, ready to go, or did you get deep into van life?
So it is van life. It's a converted. Well, we converted a VW Crafter van, so it's as big a van as I could drive on my driving license, because all of the test centres were closed with lockdown and everything, so I couldn't upgrade my driving license to get a bus or something. Otherwise, we might have done. So probably for the best that we couldn't, because the van we've got is as big as I'm allowed to drive, and then it's nice. We've got a king-size bed in the back. We've got a little kitchen, shower and toilet, everything that it's pretty basic, but everything that we need to journey around, and it's warm. It's watertight now after a couple of leaks early on that we've managed to
some duct tape.
we've duct taped up. And yeah, so we're pretty well adjusted to living in a van.
So there's loads of time to get into the golf courses, which we're going to do very shortly. But I've got to ask, how's that holding up between you and Harriet as well? How's all that going? I mean, that life on the road's got to be, there's got to be some massive highs when you get to a stunning part of Scotland, but there's got to be some chronic lows when the rain's coming down, you've lost, you're stuck in the middle of a lane. How's it all going?
It was pretty bleak up at Durness. So Durness, we were there. We'd been there before. And we were parked up, and I can't remember what storm it was, but it was one of the storms with a name. The van was getting buffeted in probably 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and it was chucking down, and that's when we got the the leak that I alluded to. And it was a pretty miserable 18 hours, sort of stuck there in the rain, waiting for it to stop, and then the next morning, that was all of Sunday, and then the next morning, opened the doors, not a breath of wind, and it was, I don't know, it's certainly short sleeves weather, and it was gorgeous, and fortunately we've had more days like that than we have of the former, and that makes all the difference. But we're still here. She hasn't left me to go back to the house just yet, so fingers crossed it will stay that way.
And you've got the dogs with you as well, is that right?
Yeah, we've got Watson and Winnie, our two Cocker Spaniels. So they're having the time of their lives with us 24/7 and half a dozen walks a day. So they think it's all their Christmases have come at once.
Yeah, I bet they're sleeping their little hind legs off, aren't they,
brilliant.
Sam? Are you finding pretty much, I mean, we've recently come back from a little jaunt in Scotland, as I'm sure you're aware, and the most refreshing thing about golf up there is the club's willingness just to have dogs on the course. Are you finding that's pretty much a universal rule, or are you finding it's kind of
pretty much
hit and miss?
There are maybe 2 or 3 courses we've been to where they're not very dog friendly, but they're so in the minority. As you say, dogs are welcome.
It's mad, isn't it? And you think that's literally, you could be, a few miles away from the Scottish border, and most of the golf courses in England don't really have that. It's just I don't know, odd observation. I think a lot of golf courses would be far better for it.
It's funny, isn't it? And it's always or in England, more often than not, it's the sort of posher clubs that you might, on the face of it, not expect to have. They're probably the last places you'd expect to have dogs, like Sunningdale and Royal St George's and Rye and places like that.
And Berkshire have them and all sorts, don't they?
There you go, they've heard something. And they're the places that do, but yeah, it's a shame it's not quite so prevalent in England.
I know that I personally, with my dogs, would have been nervous approaching the golf club saying, is it okay for dogs? Are you now in a position where you just assume dogs are okay unless you're told otherwise?
We do check, but as I say, it's so rare that they say no that you are surprised when they say no. So we've one of our dogs is good and he's quiet, and the other one we've managed to work out a way of keeping her quiet. And as long as she's got a ball in her mouth and carries it round with her, then she's quiet for 18 holes. So
our astute listeners will have just heard her probably scratching herself on the floor there. I think I heard a collar going at a decent clip. So let's get into business then, Sam. So just for everyone's kind of awareness, you started off in and around sort of home territory, the Wirral, Liverpool, West Lancs, all around that sort of neck of the woods. Quick burst up the west coast and over the Scottish border. Where's stop number one? Am I right in saying that's out near Turnberry, Prestwick, out that sort of neck of the woods, Ayreshire?
Yeah, so when we decided to do it, obviously to get the van together and everything else took a bit of time. So over the summer, when we thought, okay, let's plot a route all the way around, I started to play then the courses that are more local to me back home. So your Wallasey and Royal Birkdale and those courses on the sort of Lancashire coast all the way up towards Sillerthon Solway. So all of those I managed to, or not all of them, I still got some to go back and play, but a lot of those I played over the summer. And then we went on a buddies trip to Turnberry, which was great. That was at the very beginning of September, and that's kind of when we started. So we went up to Turnberry, came back down, picked up the van, and then drove it up to. We actually went past Troon, Prestwick, all of those, which I've still got to come back to. But there's such a great, there's a glut of golf there. That's probably a week's worth of Troon and Western Gales and Prestwick and all of the others that are
the Glasgow Gales there as well, and
there's
Brassey, all those tracks.
It's such a great little area that I've got a few friends there, so it'd take a bit of arranging to sort of line up to go and see them, and have a great week doing that. So we thought that whilst the weather was looking pretty good, the forecast was looking pretty good, that we'd head on past there and drive round to Kintyre. And Kintyre is the peninsula that's sort of due west of Prestwick area, and it's on the same kind of longitude, but you can either get a couple of ferries to go across, or you can drive the long way round, which is sort of a 4-hour drive up west and then down the peninsula, which is what we did, and then we based ourselves there in Kintyre for about a week.
Wow! So that's Machrihanish, isn't it? That's all the Machrihanish tracks, right?
Exactly. So you've got Machrihanish, Mac Dunes, which is a new course that, just over 10 years now, that David McLeod Kidd built on a triple SI, heavily protected piece of land. So it's a bit of a quirky course, but great fun, amazing piece of land. And that's next door to Machrihanish, which is an old Tom Morris course and is phenomenal. It's so good. It's the one with the famous first hole, driving over the beach, Atlantic Ocean to the left if you get too bold, and it's a great course. But then there are loads of others around there. So Dunavity, you've got Carradale, which is a great little 9-hole that I wasn't expecting anything of, and then when I got there, I was blown away. It was fantastic. So there were a few others on that peninsula, and then you can take a ferry then at either side. If you take the ferry east, you go to Arran, where Shiskeen is the most or best known course on there. Amazing little 12-holer.
But there's others as well, aren't there? Am I right?
I think there are 7 courses on Arran.
It's a tiny bit of land, isn't it? It's a small place.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm kind of sticking to links courses, and Shiskeen's probably the only one that really could class itself as a links course on Arran. So with heavy heart, I didn't play any of the others, but they look fantastic. You drive past them, and they're all sort of draped over hills with amazing views, and you could have a great little few days spent on Arran playing golf.
So just tell us a little bit more about Kintyre then, Sam. So yeah, I think I've never played any of the stuff at Machrihanish, any of those tracks. They're all on the list. You've got obviously the DMK kind of, that's a big sustainability project. I think, is it David Russell designed, is it Old Mac, or there's another one.
So you've
got the Macri.
I'm yet to play the Macri. It's one I've got to head back to in the spring. So the Macri, which I'm looking forward to seeing, it's meant to be epic. They've spent a lot of money, from what I gather in recent years, sort of improving what they had, which was pretty good to start with. And then the other course around there, which has just started accepting visitors this year of all years, with a price tag to make you scream, is Ardfin. But it looks sensational.
Oh, yeah. Right. Now, I've heard that is one of the toughest golf courses on the planet.
I've heard the same.
Confirm or deny?
No, I've yet to play it, but I've heard the same. A few of my friends went over there to see it. I think they're on a Golf Rater panel thing, so they went to see it, and they said it's absolutely spectacular, and but very bloody difficult, quite tight and pretty windy when they played it. So I'm looking forward to seeing it one day.
Spans the cliffs, doesn't it? It goes up quite high, so you're going to get pounded by the weather. It's quite high up, isn't it?
I believe so.
I made that up.
No, I believe it's
Tom's just frantically researching here.
No. I think
Tom
the
pulled
UK
up Golf Club Atlas mid.
No. I remember seeing. I think is it UK Golf Guy? I think did like an every hole at Ardfin, and it did all look pretty up the cliffs, didn't it? So it looks spectacular, to be fair. But forgive me for saying this, Cooper, but like when you talk about your the courses you played, it seems a bit like you've been throwing darts at a dartboard and see what comes out. What's the thought process behind going to an area, then moving to another area and saying, I've got to go back there at some point to finish it off?
Well, it's probably 2020 is one of the main reasons. So we were working our way up and we had this little route, and one of the routes, as an example, we were going to do is go from Wig on Skye, get the ferry across to Harris, and go and play Askanish and the courses there in the Outer Hebrides. And I was getting some fuel. There's a filling station there. Guy was reading this little local newspaper, and the headline: 22 coronavirus cases on Harris, and the island shut down. So that was it.
Shit,
we can't do anything about that. They were I think the ferries were suspended over there when we were looking to go over. And one of the things that we found on this is you can have the best laid plans, but if something goes wrong, like coronavirus, or the schedule doesn't quite work, or something changes, then you've just got to be flexible. So we're doing as best as we possibly can to keep to our sort of route and itinerary, but we're just very accepting of the fact that it's not going to happen perfectly, and we're going to be heading back to certain places to hoover up the ones that we miss next year, probably.
That's a shame, isn't it? I can imagine. I'm guessing, but I would have thought Askanish was probably one that was circled and one that was an adventure you're looking forward to, because it's not a place you go past, is it? Let's be honest. So,
no, absolutely not. But it's the same with the Orkney and the Shetland Islands. You know, there are some up there that I'm really looking forward to going to see, but it's just not viable this time. And also, we're going into the winter. We've got to be We've got to be accepting of that as well. So we're trying to make good progress while we can, while we still have some good weather and light and everything else. But, if you're in the far, far north of Scotland, some of those islands are a 6-hour ferry away from the mainland. So if you're taking a 6-hour ferry north in January, it's you're not going to have all of the daylight that you'd want to do it properly. So we've got to be realistic as well.
Yeah, I mean, 54 holes around Durness in December is not looking very likely, is it, to be honest with you? So you're just not going to have the light to deal with these things.
6 rounds.
Yeah, it would. That's a good point. And probably not needed, would be fair to say. But I'm just illustrating my point. So you're winging it a little, and I think that's to be expected. And that's the thing. Like, I suppose you can all the best laid plans and all that jazz, but the reality is, things are kind of, you have to think on your feet. So kind of in that spirit, Sam, there must have been a few where you've thought, right, well, that's not panned out. Let's go and give this a whirl. Okay, do you know what? We're going to spend an extra night here. Let's stay here. Let's maybe go and check this place out. What's been the biggest, sort of wow, Jesus Christ, I was not expecting this place to be that good. This was really just a punt. And you must have had one, because this is always a case. Golf is always almost, whether it's wine or anything, you're ultimately making a punt on the basis of, I didn't expect it to be. It's better than what I expected it to be. Do you know what I mean? Like turning up to Turnberry, having a great day. Yeah, the course is brilliant, but then it's kind of billed to be epic anyway. So it's always that sort of expectation versus what you get at the other end. What's been the big shock?
So Shiskeen was definitely one of those. We were sort of in two minds because we knew we had to come back for the Macquarie. We were in two minds whether to take the ferry over to Arran to go and see there. And I was so glad that we did. That place was magic. Then Durness as well, but we knew we'd been to Durness last year. We knew that was, or I knew that was great, having played it before. But the first time I went, when we drove around the North Coast 500 last year, I had no idea then that it was going to be anywhere near as good as it is. And I possibly enjoyed it even more this year than I did last year, which is really saying something. And that was a trip where I'd played Dornoch and Brora as well last year. So it was in very good company, but the kind of company that, as you say, with Turnberry, you expect Royal Dornoch, one of the top 10 ranked courses in the UK, depending on any list you look at. Sometimes it's the number one ranked course.
World, yeah.
So you expect it to be amazing, and it is amazing. So, yeah, great day of golf. But Durness, you never hear of it. And then you get there, and bloody hell, it's just as much fun as anywhere else you'll play. So that's another highlight. And then probably then, as we worked our way down the East Coast, we played Skibo Castle, which is ultra private.
Is that a scoop?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a scoop? I mean, come on, Sam.
No,
I'm
but
not sure
that's
we're going to
on-
have Skibo Castle as a hidden gem on here, are we?
That's on my list
I
big time.
I know, but
I mean, it's
The
got to be
golf
good.
was great.
But you've got to be, hasn't it?
no. But how many places do you go, and you know it's going to be posh, and you know you're going to have a great day, and but the golf was actually brilliant in its own right. If it had been, a kind of a conventional club without all of the airs and graces that come with a place like that, it was fantastic. The course in its own right.
I actually think
I'll agree with that.
With courses like Skibo and Dornoch and things like that, where you're going into it with expectations so high that actually sometimes it's harder to have a really good time because you want to really have a good time. And I think sometimes I find it easy if I've got no expectations whatsoever. Have you found that on your trip that some of those big tickets are quite hard to live up to the expectation?
Yes, definitely. But that's golf, isn't it? It's all about the experience you get relative to the expectation, like you say. And sometimes Sometimes you have a better time than you expect, and you go away feeling more positive about the place. But really, if you compared it, if you're underwhelmed by Turnberry because of the expectation, and you're super impressed by somewhere that you'd never heard of before, does that make the other place better than Turnberry? Probably not. Turnberry's still going to be better, isn't it? But
that's a fair
it's all
point.
relative.
It's expectation management, isn't it? And I think we've just done a little, as I keep saying on this pod, just done a little trip to Scotland. And if I'm honest, I really did not expect to leave Castle Stuart and Renaissance as gushing about the places as I was, because I kind of thought they would be great golfing experiences, but probably fairly benign golf courses. And
that's what I mean
totally
with Skibo.
wrong, to be honest.
It's more of an experience rather than a good golfing test.
But then the golf course hits you and you're like, oh, holy shit, this thing's good. And I think there's always the risk because there's a lot of big ticket courses, the Americans call them like Barry Bag Tag or whatever, just kind of follow around, ticking off massive box, kind of box checking and, hideously expensive green fees. But some of those places really do kind of stack up, which is cool. I mean, just in terms of the architecture side of it, Sam. So obviously this is part fun, part adventure, and I sense probably part education as well in course architecture for you as well. I know it's a subject dear to your hearts. What's been the sort of learnings on your travels, or have there been any?
Yeah, great question. It definitely is part of to be able to go to places and see the kind of holes that C.B. Macdonald then took as the template holes. They're all here. They're all in Scotland and England, and they're predominantly links courses. So we're very lucky to be able to play them. And there's not I don't think, any course at all on the list that I'm playing, which is about 192 courses now, that you can't play one way or another. Some may be more expensive than others, but there are none that are, maybe one or two that are more difficult to get onto. But they're also open, and therefore it's a great opportunity for anyone to go and play a bit of links golf and see some truly historic things. And yeah, so going, and one of the rationale for traveling around and doing it is the maps that I'm producing with Evaluating with Joe McDonnell and Jasper. So it's great to be able to map some places that I don't think ordinarily you'd go and do it. You'd never. I keep mentioning Shiskin, but we're going to do a map there, and people haven't probably heard of it to the degree of the Old Course or Royal St George's or St Enodoc or some of the other places we have done maps where you might expect a map to be done because they have a big membership and they have a big following. But there's no reason why people won't fall in love with a lot of these other courses, because there's a lot to fall in love with, and finding and trying to identify what makes some of these quirky small places good golf is probably a worthwhile thing to do as well. And there's loads written about the Old Course and everything else, but why did I have such a good time when I went to Durness, or why did you have such a good time when you went to Castle Stuart? It's good architecture that makes fun and interesting golf, and it's out there to just go and play and experience for yourself. And
for our listeners that have watched some of our films that we've made, they would have seen you starring the show in the Hoylake film, talking about width and angles and Tiger's 2-iron and burnt out.
Put us on the map, that did, Sam. That was such a beautiful monologue. Yeah. Beautiful monologue.
Sam Williams really likes the crescendo in the music when you come on. It's like
he looks
Cooper's
out the window at one point. I've only seen it once or twice. Continue, Tom. Continue.
You've obviously got your position on the Greens Committee at Hoylake. Are you, on your travels, are you consciously trying to absorb some of this stuff to think like, well, how can I go back and try and improve my own home course, or are you just taking time off all that?
I I don't know. I wouldn't say actively trying to necessarily hunt out things that, but there are so many talented people out there who spend all day, every day working on their course, and some people have some different ideas. And yeah, it would be. There's no way that anyone ever could say, yeah, this is the way you do this. This is how it should be done, and bollocks to everyone else who doesn't do it this way. There's a load of ways to skin a cat, as they say. So you do pick up different things. That's the nature of golf, I suppose, that you have such variety, and it's variety in how things are set up and how things play, and yeah, there's more variety in our game than I could imagine in any other sport.
Well, there's just, and particularly in Scotland, the history and the courses and everything like that, you've got so much breadth, haven't you? You've got so much, kind of so many distinguishing features from one course to the next. Doing what we do, you naturally scroll through a lot of Instagram posts in a day, and you get quite good at seeing one particular feature, and you'll be like, oh, I know exactly where that is. You don't need to see where that's tagged in at, because you can see, and it's quite interesting. Then you think designing courses back then, or essentially they were designed for you by Mother Nature, but people just had to deal with what they were given. And then it's also equally interesting then going to a Castle Stuart or a Renaissance or a Skibo, where they've got the luxury of huge amounts of earth movement and everything to kind of, I guess, kind of create whatever they want. And have they created any better? Probably a matter for debate, and some would agree and disagree. But, it is incredible when you look at the breadth you've got out there, and you start looking at particularly Shiskin. It looks absolutely fabulous. Dunavity is quite an interesting one. I've seen quite a bit of stuff out there. It looks like essentially it's run on a relatively low cost basis. So you've got kind of square greens, you've got, everything that goes with it. It's kind of got that whole sort of Brora feel with kind of sheep, it's kind of common land, right? So tell us a little bit about Dunavity.
Yeah, so Dunavity was really interesting. I was speaking to they've just got a new head greenkeeper, and I think he said that he was the fourth man in the job in the 100 and something years that Dunavity have been going for.
No way.
How cool is that? So
that's unreal.
But the square greens is quite interesting, because they do have square greens there, but if anyone follows Joe McDonnell on social media, you'll no doubt see some old maps and pictures of our home course. Joe and I are both members of Hoylake, Royal Liverpool, and we used to have square greens in the 1900s, and Harry Colt was commissioned in the mid-1920s to sort of refurbish the course, and one of the things that he did was to create more conventional, shall we say, green shapes, and to formalise the bunkering as well. And you wonder if maybe it's an example at Dunavity of lots of courses did have square greens back then. That was just the style, but they've had an architect come in at some point over history and make the greens more as we'd expect them to be today. But Dunavity kind of got missed off, and because they haven't had a load of greenkeepers coming through changing things, it's more authentic to how it was in the early days when it was laid out, because you do have holes there that cross over. There's one part of the course where there are two marker posts, and you've got to remember whether am I meant to be aiming for the one on the left, which is such a green, or the one on the right, which is a different green entirely. And the two holes cross over each other, and there are loads of places in Scotland like that, and they're just super fun. But if they had to host a big, I don't know, say they had to host a European Tour event or even a big amateur event, there's no way that they do it, because it's not the done thing anymore. Or it's not de rigueur to have crossing over and blind shots to the same degree that it was acceptable to do it in the sort of old Tom Morris's day, for example. But they're still out there, and they're great fun to find these places.
Have there been many other courses you've come past in your travels that stuck with the geometric greens?
No, that's one of few. I can't think of anywhere yet. I'm sure I will, but so
it's weird
far,
how it's in fashion in the States, isn't it? It's like that's the
it's kind of like the Seth
that's
Graham
like
thing
the pièce de résistance, isn't it? In the States, that's if you've got the square greens, geometric greens, you're really in business there. And I think that's maybe last time we spoke when we had Jasper on, it was that kind of so far behind that it's already in front again now, if that makes sense, in the same way that I think those were Jasper's famous words. But it's kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah, trying to get back the as you say, there are loads of places in the States that are trying to capture what they've been doing here for hundreds of years, and they haven't deviated from what works. They found a model that works, and it's straightforward, low cost, low maintenance relatively. That's not to take anything away from the green stuff, but you might not need however many millions and millions of litres of water that they put on some places elsewhere. Here it's a lot more natural, and year by year one course can look completely different to how it looked the year before based on how much rain there is in a given year. And it's again that variety, but it's a simple way of playing and approaching golf, and it ain't broken, so why would you try and change it?
You've got it all in front of you, I think, haven't you, Sam? So you're in Inverness at the moment. You've got, I don't know how many we're through on the 192 course binge that you're on, but you've still got quite a bit ahead of you, I'm sensing.
Oh yeah, I'm about 30 courses in so far, so a long way to go. A long way to go yet. But
so give me some of the big highlights that you're looking forward to in Scotland. So you've got quite a bit more to go, just certainly in Scotland in its own right. So what are the kind of big ones that you're looking to tick off?
Going forward? So I'm looking forward.
Like, which ones are the ones you're most excited? Like the ones where you're like, Jesus, I cannot wait to get to the car park of, I don't know, Cruden Bay or
Cruden Bay, yeah. So it's funny how they come in little
teed them up tonight.
So, but Aberdeen is one of the next sort of places on the itinerary. So there you've got Trump's course there, and Royal Aberdeen and Cruden Bay, Fraserburgh just before. So another great little area for golf that I can't wait to get to. And then past that, you're down in Fife, so that kind of speaks for itself around there. The volume and of amazing courses they have there, and then we're down in your neck of the woods where you've just been in East Lothian.
I thought you were going to say the Midlands then, Sam. I said I was not going to be
not
give you much
links.
Not much
apart
link
from
golf
Cleve
around-
Hill, which
around
is obviously
there.
a fantastic links course in the sky. East Lothian. I mean, that's frightening how much golf there is there. Genuinely frightening.
Because where did you play? Your fields?
They call it Gullum 4.
We played Gullum 1, Renaissance, Muirfield, Kilspindy, and Musselburgh with your fine self.
Yeah.
Who joined us for nine holes of hickorying.
Got the
Which was,
hickories back out. First time this year.
that was,
I want to talk a
an
little bit
education.
about. I think that's a pretty good segue. So, hickory golf. So, first time I'd ever done it. I've got a few hickory clubs knocking around the house that I've sort of acquired, throughout the years. And I'm sure I've hit a few irons up at the driving range with one. Thought, they can get it going. Just take a bit off it, and you're okay. Playing with hickory clubs round Musselburgh was almost like becoming a complete beginner again, I felt. It was one of the toughest 9 holes. The 4 of us, it took us 2.5 hours to play 10 holes, 4-ball, better ball, 2v2. The golf quality was poor. I'm not going to lie.
I actually had one. I had one par. I was very, very proud of myself.
It's obscenely hard. And I know, Sam, you're a bit of a hickoryman, but it is tough, isn't it? And is there a bit of you where you've thought, I don't know, this place looks pretty easy with the modern equipment. I'm just going to pull the hickories out. It's a good leveler for me today. Or if you just thought, nah, you know what? Life's hard enough. I'm going to let the big dog eat. We're going to pull my Pro V1, get the Vokey wedges on this, get a bit of spin going, and we should be fine. Have you been tempted?
What do you think, Mills? Because I think Sam made it look harder than it actually
Sam
is.
made it a lot harder than it was.
I couldn't keep the thing on the planet. It was, I don't know whether it's the steep angle of attack or maybe I'm just generating too much club head speed and I'm just too much of a pure ball striker for these things to keep up. But it was chronic.
For someone that's WHS has just been demoted to pretty much the low handicap of the group.
Good point.
To then be a nearly 3-digit hickory player was quite impressive. It was quite a fall from grace.
Yeah, it was tough. It was Hickory's golf's interesting though, and I think when we spoke last, Sam, on the pod, you talked about playing Hickory is interesting because all of a sudden stuff's in play that you hadn't thought of in the past. And I think we stood on something like the second hole at Musselburgh, and there was a wedge shot in. It was like 100 yards in. The bunker's about 30 yards short of the green on the right, and the pin's directly over it. Now, any normal day, that bunker is not in play with the wedge. It's just pointless. Like it's not in play at all, is it, for most golfers? This time, there's no spin on the ball. You have to land it, pretty much on top of the bunker, or you've got to go well left of the pin to play for it. And I just thought it was a proper education. I'd have liked to have been able to hit the clubs a little bit better than I did. I'd have liked to have maybe kind of had a few more goes round and kind of got used to the feel and get used to where the face was at any given moment. But it was interesting.
Yeah, I think it makes the width and angles thing relevant, doesn't it? Because when as you say, on that second hole there, that bunker, you had to be on the left-hand side of the fairway to have a chance of running it up, because the only way to hold the green would be to land it sort of 5-10 yards short, because you can't just stick it 100 yards in the air and get it coming back with a bit of juice on the ball. It's just not it's not an option. So I thought it was really interesting when you had Lou Stagner on your pod the other week, and he was saying, well, if you run the model, and you model the course out 1,000 times, and you go on the right hand side where the trouble is to get a favourable line in, it never actually pays off. You're better off just smashing driver and coming in from an inferior angle away from the trouble. I think it's only really when you play with hickory stuff that you appreciate that original argument, because then you do get an advantage from being on the right side. And other things, if there's a gorse bush on the thing, I think you found this a few times.
This is not about my hickory golf, this podcast. This is about your golf and adventure, Sam. I really don't want to drag attention away.
But you'd never think about it if it's sort of maybe 80 yards of carry,
some control on the pace, can't I?
But you never think about it if you're just playing with your normal clubs, because you're never going to go there. But all of a sudden, if you miss your hickory, then it is only going to carry whatever it might be, 50 yards, and instead
it was more than 50. It was more than 50. There's a bit of VAT going on this story here, but yeah.
When this podcast goes out, our Musselburgh film won't be released, but we need to give you a little bit of a heads up. It will be coming soon. But one thing that our viewers will find out, our listeners will find out, that we found out, is that hickories possibly aren't the most sturdy clubs to hit balls with, as Bruce and I found out on the very same hole.
Fifth hole.
I can't say I've
That
ever
was
had
a
a
crazy coincidence,
a-
that wasn't it? The
yeah.
only two.
Couple of cliques just completely splitting in two at the top of the backswing. Now, I mean, fair enough with Bruce because he's generating about 120 clubhead speed. Mills was generating about 65 when he's absolutely jacked. So I don't know how. I could only put it down to the fish glue that was in those hickories.
Mills, do you think it was the top of your backswing, not its impact?
Mills has never found the top of his backswing. He's never completed the swing.
I've slowed it down, and it's broken before impact.
Oh wow!
But it's not broken. It's not broken at the top of the backswing. It's somewhere near P5. It's just gone.
P5.
It must be so. It must be so violent in
Take your golfing
P5.
machine, drivel, and get off this pod immediately, young man, and wash your mouth out.
They're 100 years old, aren't they? And I'll tell you what, it adds a whole new level of difficulty when you've got to worry about whether your club's going to make it through the swing or not. Because
I didn't like that. It really put me on edge with that. I put the cleek away at that point. To be fair, the mid iron and the niblick, they were working okay. I could hit those all day. That was no problem. The driver felt like it had like a half a degree loft, and the cleek was just, I mean, it was unworkable. It was like putting with a blade. It was like hitting the ball with a blade.
But they're all unique, aren't they? They're antique clubs now. They're over. Well, some of those would have been about 100 years old. Typically, it's sort of up to 1930. Anything made before that is sort of playable if you're a proper hickory nerd like me. But so that it's not like they're modern clubs. When they were first built, I'm sure they were a hell of a lot more sturdy when they were fresh out of the club maker's studio, but now they've had a life and they've been hit by however many people in the 100
a lot of
years.
choppers like me.
Aggressive youths like ourselves. I mean, you talk a bit about the history there, Sam. History obviously pouring out of every corner of Scottish golfing. Interesting stories you've picked up on your travels? You had anywhere you've come away and thought, I did not know that about the game up there, or bloody hell, that's an interesting tradition or quirk, because you've played some random ones now, you've hopped around a little bit.
What a good question. A lot
of our guests say that when they don't know the answer to something I've asked.
Buy myself some time to think. I mean, for history, one of the coolest places is Dornoch, probably, with all the history they have there. I mean, they've been playing golf for almost 400 years. Not on the course that's there now, but playing the game of golf. 400 odd years there, and Donald Ross grew up. The famous architect grew up in the town. Lovely little town of Dornoch, and he was 5-minute walk away from the course. And you think of the people that have sort of passed through these places. John Sutherland, the secretary there, used to get where he got old Tom Morris up from, I can't remember whether he was at Prestwick or St Andrews at the time, to come and do the work to the course, I believe, didn't he? And it's like, well, God, if Donald Ross meets old Tom, and then Donald Ross goes to the States, and then the people that he influences, and it's like this tree.
The butterfly effect is crazy, isn't it, in golf, when you look back? Like, I always talk about, if Colt had actually fancied a bit of winter sun and gone to Australia to do, Royal Melbourne, then, you wouldn't have Augusta National and all of that kind of good stuff, right? And Pasatiempo and stuff would be completely different courses. And the same applies. Like, Ross plays golf in Dornoch, obviously inspired by old Tom when I worked down at, I think it's Forgans in St Andrews, and then goes over to the States and becomes probably their most prolific architect, and really kind of fabled character over in the States, isn't he now? And you just think, like, wow. I mean, Dornoch on its own right is a world-class golf course. And then I think that Donald Ross story that kind of permeates the place as well just kind of gives it a bit more meaning, maybe, perhaps.
But if Dornoch wasn't Dornoch, so the greens there are probably some of my favourite greens that I've ever played, and that is a place where you've got to be coming from the right side of the fairway, because if you you can't just aim at the flag, because all of a sudden your ball keeps rolling and then it's rolled all the way off the green and you've got this near impossible chip back up it all of a sudden. So you really do have to think your way around there. But if those greens weren't like that, the sort of upturned saucers, well, would Pinehurst number 2 look like Pinehurst number 2? Would Donald Ross have built greens that look like that if it was a different town in Scotland that he'd come from? If he'd come from Hoylake, where I'm from, and everything's kind of at grade and the greens are pretty flat, and it wasn't old Tom, but it was his brother who laid out Hoylake, old Tom's brother. So if he'd been similarly inspired and then gone around the world designing things, would things look the same as they do now? Would you have that American style of architecture? So I don't know, but it's a hell of a cool place, and that's one of my favourites that I've been so far.
I forgot how insane that second green is until we played it, and that was...
I got bullied by that second hole.
Easy done, isn't it? If you go long, you're buggered.
But we've taken up far too much of your time. But just as a little parting gift, can you give our listeners one course they've not heard of they have to go to?
Oh, good question. I've mentioned a couple of them. So Durness, go to Durness. Machrihanish, go to Machrihanish.
They've definitely heard of that.
No, I think that's fair. Like, that's such an easy place to skip over on a tour selection criteria, isn't it? Because it's out of the way.
To get to.
Yeah, it's more of an effort, and you're like, oh shit! Like, is it not easier just to go to Ayrshire? But
it's like going to Ayrshire plus 4 hours.
Yeah,
it's
and that's what I'm saying.
It's not that far.
Obviously, you've got your van, Sam. Is there infrastructure there in Machrihanish?
Oh yeah. Campbelltown is probably 10-15 minute drive max from Machrihanish, and it's absolutely fine, perfect place to base yourself. And when Mac Dunes, the developments of that course there, when that came, they built alongside the first tee at Machrihanish, they built a guest house there and this hotel and things. So, but to answer your question, Miles, why is it worth going there? It's a hell of a good value. It's probably, by the time you've played half a dozen courses in that area compared to half a dozen courses in, say, East Lothian or Ayrshire, for example, just to pick on those, it will cost you a fraction of the amount in green fees. And it's as pure a links destination as anywhere. The links experience of the turf and the wind and the sand and everything is magical.
Sam Cooper, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to getting you back on when you've done more than 30 courses, maybe when you get something near 100 and we can wax lyrical about the East Lothian. Is that so you've got Aberdeen to do and then you're off down to sort of St Andrews Way, is that?
Yeah, so I'm just on the little coast between Inverness and Aberdeen at the moment, working my way along. So Cullen Links and Strathleen and
Cullen looks awesome. Cullen looks very cool.
It's
very cool.
It was quirky. I played there the other day. It's certainly quirky. 18 holes on a bit of land that probably 18 is a push. But you end up with a load of cool par threes to make up the numbers.
Well, Sam, we wish you well. We wish you the weather, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Very kind, boys. Looking forward to teeing up with you soon.
Anytime. Cheers, Sam.
This